The relationship between Galadriel and Sauron has always been deep, complex, nuanced, and threaded throughout the works of J.R.R. Tolkien. It is something that has kept fans of the books and now of the Rings of Power television show enraptured for years. So today, we are going to unpack some of the nuances in the Galadriel/Sauron relationship. Welcome, friends, to Middle-earth. I am Ashley Victoria Robinson, your video host and producer here in the Popverse, a virtual realm created by ReadPop. Today, I have everything we need for this Sauron Galadriel discussion. I have my very own Ring of Power. Yes, it is Nenya. You're right, if that's what you're thinking. Yes, it's movie Nenya. I understand it's not the same, but still, I thought it was only appropriate to bring her to this discussion since we're going to be so Galadriel heavy today. And also, when you're looking for things like this, in addition to revisiting the tomes and the oeuvre of J.R.R. Tolkien, as well as revisiting Rings of Power, I want to shout out Ammon Hen. This is the official publication of the Tolkien Society. This issue specifically was a big help for me in prepping this video. They have a lot of great information that you can find about these complex relationships, fan theories, and so much more. So shout out to Ammon Hen for doing the good work for us. So without further ado, let's dive into the complex relationship between the beautiful and ethereal Galadriel and the dark and scary Lord Sauron. The new Amazon Prime series, The Rings of Power, has sparked conversations and theories about the early character arc of Galadriel and her rejection of Sauron's offer of power, the nature of her relationship with her husband Celeborn, and whether or not she really is the queen of love and beauty or something else entirely. Myself and members of the Lord of the Rings fandom have spent the past couple years exploring Galadriel's portrayal in the Rings of Power series and how it aligns with Tolkien's writing. Obviously, the version of Galadriel that we get in the Rings of Power is not canonically or chronically aligned with J.R.R. Tolkien's version of the character, and where she would have been during the Second Age of Middle-earth. Forgiving fans accept the assumption that Rings of Power is attempting to explore Galadriel's earlier character arc, and that it's an attempt to analyze their portrayal of this arc as compared to Tolkien's. First and foremost, when thinking about early, that is, pre-Third Age and even pre-Second Age Galadriel and the concept of light, it certainly struggles with the darkness that we see her bringing to the screen in the Rings of Power. However, I have a Tolkien quote for you. Quote, "Galadriel was born in the bliss of Valinor, but it was not long in the reckoning of the Blessed Realm before that was dimmed, and thereafter she had no peace within. For in that testing time, amid the strife of the Noldor, she was drawn this way and that. She was proud, strong, and self-willed, as were all the descendants of Finwë, save Finarfin. And like her brother Finrod, of all her kin the nearest to her heart, she had dreams of far lands and dominions that might be her own to order, as she would without tutelage. Yet deeper still were dwelt in her the noble and generous spirit of the Vanyar, and a reverence for the Valar that she could not forget." That very specific quote comes to you from The Unfinished Tales. For those playing along at home, this is the source material that most of the Rings of Power is pulling from, The Unfinished Tales. This inner conflict really brings to light the complexity of Galadriel's character, with Rings of Power portraying her as this headstrong leader and a conflicted figure, driven by both noble intentions and personal desires. This depiction challenges the traditional view of Galadriel as a purely virtuous character, and raises thought-provoking questions about her early years in Middle-earth. Something you also have to consider when you are reading Tolkien specifically is that Tolkien was writing this at the beginning of the 20th century, and even though he seems to have been a nice man who a lot of people liked and respected, he probably had the values of a white man in England during that time, which is to say, not views that dovetail with more modern creators and more modern fans on femininity. So a Tolkien version of a conflicted Galadriel could still have been the ethereal elven queen, but now, through a contemporary studio portrayed by contemporary creators and a contemporary actor, we are seeing come to life and being able to go toe-to-toe with a character as dark as Sauron in a way that maybe in the original text isn't necessarily laid down. Maybe per Tolkien's original intentions, wasn't as much a sword fight as it was an energetic battle. And this reimagining of Galadriel begs the question, what if Sauron did have another encounter with her, with an early, more conflicted, younger Galadriel? What if his offer of power resonated with her ambitions and her inner conflict? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Tolkien's Unfinished Tales goes on to describe her as, but now she burned with the desire to follow Fëanor to Middle-earth, with her anger to whatever lands he might come, and to thwart him in all ways that she could. Kind of seems like the earlier Galadriel might have shared some similarities with Sauron. Or maybe even shared his desire to conquer Middle-earth? Hinting at a potential alignment in their motives? Kind of like we see play out in their romantic moments in season 1 of The Rings of Power. And she strives more and more throughout the Unfinished Tales to become more like her rival Fëanor, to share some of these qualities that she both hates and admires in him. Galadriel was the greatest of the Noldor, except Fëanor, maybe, though she was wiser than he, and her wisdom increased with the long years. But, you know, per book canon, maybe she never gets there. Except for Fëanor, maybe, must be pretty smart. If you're as deep into the Tolkien lore as I am, you know that Fëanor is a really legendary figure. Like, if you think Galadriel is a legendary figure per the Lord of the Rings, and just the Lord of the Rings movie, Fëanor is like way up there. And for them to be rivals, if not at odds, is really, really interesting. When, at the end of the first season of The Rings of Power, Halbrand, as played by Charlie Vickers, reveals himself to be Sauron, he makes Galadriel the implicit offer of queenship and of partnership, which is something we haven't seen her offer throughout the whole series. She faces character after character, Elrond after Celebrimbor, after Gil-galad, telling her she's not an equal, and that maybe she's not even a good leader. It's a scene, in my opinion, that's not unlike the scene in The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring movie from 2001, where Frodo offers Galadriel the Ring of Power, and she has a moment where she gives over to the darkness, and all shall love me and despair. I mean, iconic, but Galadriel and Halbrand really recalls that Galadriel and Frodo moment, where you see her darkness come out through the Queen of Light and Beauty. You also have to consider Galadriel's decision-making process when she is faced with this offer of power and queenship from Sauron. It emphasizes the importance of understanding her character's complexity and the motivations that drive her choices. The heated exchange between Galadriel and Sauron takes on a new meaning when we explore the internal struggles and the motive behind their interactions. And in my opinion, it's this early textual version of Galadriel from the words of J.R.R. Tolkien himself that actually kind of makes the Sauron Galadriel slasher, shipper, romance, however you want to think about it, from the Rings of Power hold a ray of truth, if not have it make a little bit of sense. Stay tuned to this channel right here for more in-depth character and lore discussions on the world of Rings of Power, Lord of the Rings, Middle-earth, and J.R.R. Tolkien, particularly as season 2 is about to debut. And until next time, may the light of Elendil ever guide your path. I have been Ashley Victoria Robinson, your video host and producer here in the Popverse, which is of course a virtual realm created by ReadPop. If you don't want to miss any of the Tolkien things that I teased just now for you, be sure that you are visiting thepopverse.com, where we're celebrating TV, movies, and comics each and every single day. Don't forget to check that out. Coming to you from the White City of Gondor, I've been Ashley Victoria Robinson, and I will see you next time.